Most Christian families still eat bread every week. We put it on the table with soup. We toast it in the morning. We use it for sandwiches, stuffing, crumbs, and Sunday dinner. But the bread most people eat today is not very close to the bread that kept families alive in Bible times. Modern bread is often soft, white, fast, sweet, and gone from the stomach almost as quickly as it was swallowed. The old bread was different. It was heavier. It was slower. It was made from grain that had to be cleaned, ground, mixed, rested, and baked with patience. It was not a snack. It was survival. And this is where many people miss something important. When the Bible talks about bread, it is not only talking about a side dish. Bread was daily strength. Bread was hospitality. Bread was provision. Bread was what a mother stretched when the pantry was thin, what a traveler carried on the road, and what a family broke together when they were thankful just to have enough. Today I want to take you back into that old kitchen, not to chase a miracle cure. Food is not a replacement for your doctor, your medicine, or emergency care. But food can support the body, and old food wisdom can teach us things modern convenience made us forget. If you want more forgotten Bible foods and old kitchen wisdom, subscribe to this channel. Now come sit at the table with me, because we are going to talk about the biblical bread modern bakeries stopped making. First, we need to understand what changed. For most of human history, bread was not something that appeared in a plastic bag, already sliced, soft for 2 weeks, and sweet enough to feel almost like cake. Bread began with grain, real grain. Wheat, barley, spelt, millet, and other ancient grains had to be harvested, dried, stored, and ground. That meant bread carried the whole life of the household inside it. If the harvest was poor, the bread changed. If wheat was too expensive, barley went into the bowl. If the family had lentils or beans, they might stretch the flour. If there was no yeast ready, the dough had to rest and sour naturally, or be baked flat over heat. Modern bakeries solved many problems. They made bread cheap, fast, uniform, and easy. But in solving those problems, they often removed the very things that made old bread so filling. The bran was stripped away. The germ was removed. The grain was refined until it became pale and soft. Sugar was added. Oils were added. Preservatives were added. The bread rose quickly, baked quickly, and sold quickly. That is convenient, but it is not the same as the bread of the old table. The old bread asked the body to slow down. It brought fiber, minerals, texture, and weight. It made a poor meal feel like a meal. A person could eat it with lentils, oil, herbs, fish, or a small bowl of broth and feel held for hours. That brings us to the first forgotten bread, barley bread. Barley was the bread of the poor, the field worker, the traveler, and the household that had to be careful. In Bible times, wheat was prized, but barley was often more common and more affordable. It grew well. It stored well. It could feed animals, but it also fed families. When people were hungry, barley mattered. There is a reason barley bread carries such a humble feeling in Scripture. It was not fancy bread. It was not the bread of a rich banquet. It was the bread of ordinary people who still had work to do. A barley loaf would have been darker, denser, and more rustic than the soft white bread many people know today. And from a food point of view, barley is interesting because it contains a kind of soluble fiber called beta-glucan. That fiber helps the food feel more filling and can support steadier digestion. It is one reason a bowl of barley soup can feel so satisfying even when it is simple. Old families understood this without using modern words. They knew barley stayed with you. They knew it stretched the meal. They knew a child who ate a piece of strong bread with soup was less likely to come back hungry 20 minutes later. If you want to bring barley back today, you do not have to grind your own flour tomorrow morning. Start gently. Add cooked barley to soup. Try a small amount of barley flour mixed into homemade bread. Use rolled barley in porridge. Let the old grain come back into the kitchen one pot at a time. The second forgotten bread is the bread made from the whole grain, not the stripped grain. When grain is left whole, it keeps more of what God placed inside it. The outside bran brings fiber. The germ brings natural oils and nutrients. The inner part brings starch and energy. When all three remain together, bread has more body. It chews differently. It digests differently. It does not feel like eating air. Many people today say bread does not agree with them. For some, that may be a true medical issue, and anyone with celiac disease or a serious wheat sensitivity should follow medical guidance. But for others, the problem may not be bread itself. It may be the kind of bread, the speed of modern processing, the lack of fiber, the added sugar, and the way bread is eaten all day without balance. The old table rarely treated bread like candy. Bread was eaten with real food. Bread with lentils, bread with olive oil, bread with fish, bread with herbs, bread with a meal that had weight and purpose. That is a quiet lesson for us. If bread is going to be on the table, make it stronger. Choose whole grain when you can. Look for short ingredient lists. Pair it with protein, beans, soup, or olive oil. Do not let bread become the whole meal unless the bread itself is carrying real grain and real nourishment. The third forgotten bread is slow bread. Before factory yeast made bread rise quickly, many households depended on time. Dough rested. Natural fermentation did its work. The flavor deepened. The texture changed. This is why sourdough has become popular again. People are rediscovering that slow bread is not just old-fashioned. It can be easier for some people to enjoy, and it has a taste modern quick bread cannot imitate. Now, I want to be careful. Sourdough is not magic. It does not make bread safe for everyone. If a person has celiac disease, ordinary sourdough wheat bread is still not safe unless it is truly gluten-free and prepared correctly. For many families, slow fermentation can be a better direction than sweet, soft, ultra-processed bread. She meant the bread would be pale, weak, and forgettable. But the deeper truth is that rushed food often asks very little from us and gives very little back. Slow bread asks for attention. It asks you to plan supper before you are starving. It asks you to remember that feeding a household is not the same thing as filling a stomach. The fourth bread is mixed grain bread, the kind many people think of when they hear the word Ezekiel. In the book of Ezekiel, there is a striking mixture of wheat, barley, beans, lentils, millet, and spelt. People today often turn that into a modern health bread, and while the original biblical context was not a recipe card for wellness marketing, the food idea is still powerful. Mixed grains and legumes create a bread with more variety than plain white flour. That matters because old families did not always depend on one perfect ingredient. They used what they had: a little wheat, a little barley, a little lentil, a little bean. Food was practical before it was branded. The pantry had to work. Mixed grain bread can bring more fiber, more plant protein, and a wider range of nutrients than a simple refined loaf. It also tends to be more filling. That is why a small slice can feel like food, not just something soft to hold butter. If you buy Ezekiel-style bread today, read the label. Some are made with sprouted grains and legumes. Some are kept frozen because they do not rely on the same preservatives as shelf bread. That can be a good sign, but you still need to choose what fits your body and your budget. The fifth forgotten lesson is that bread was never meant to stand alone all day. In many modern homes, bread has become breakfast, lunch, snack, and late-night bite. Toast in the morning, sandwich at noon, crackers in the afternoon, rolls with dinner, sweet bread at night. That is not the old way. The old way gave bread a place, but it did not ask bread to do every job. Bread carried stew. Bread dipped into olive oil. Bread sat beside fish. Bread made lentils more satisfying. Bread traveled with dried fruit or cheese. It belonged to a pattern of eating that had plants, legumes, oil, protein, and patience. This may be the most important practical lesson in the whole video. Ask better questions. What kind of bread is it? How much are we eating? What is it eaten with? Is it whole grain or stripped? Is it slow or rushed? Is it part of a meal, or has it become the meal? Now let me give you a simple old kitchen way to bring biblical bread wisdom back without becoming extreme. First, keep one strong bread in the house instead of 3 weak ones. A whole grain sourdough, a sprouted grain loaf, a rye or barley blend, or a homemade loaf with real texture is better than a cabinet full of soft snack bread. Second, pair bread with something that slows the meal down. Lentil soup, beans, fish, eggs, olive oil, a thick vegetable stew, a handful of walnuts. Bread with nothing but jam is a quick rise and a quick fall for many people. Bread with a real meal behaves differently. Third, watch your body. Old wisdom is not stubbornness. If a food causes pain, swelling, rashes, digestive problems, or blood sugar trouble, talk to a qualified health professional. Biblical food wisdom should make you more attentive, not careless. Fourth, teach children that bread is not just something that comes sliced. Let them see grain. Let them smell yeast. Let them stir dough. Let them understand that food is made, not just bought. A child who learns that lesson carries it for life. When I think about biblical bread, I do not picture a perfect loaf on a magazine cover. I picture a tired mother with flour on her hands. I picture a small fire. I picture a table with bowls that do not match. I picture someone breaking bread and making sure the smallest child gets enough. That kind of bread had dignity. Modern bakeries did not only change the recipe, they changed our relationship with bread. They made it softer, faster, sweeter, and easier to forget. But the old bread still has something to teach us. It teaches patience. It teaches stewardship. It teaches that simple food can be strong food. It teaches that daily bread was never supposed to be empty. If this helped you, subscribe for more forgotten Bible foods and old kitchen wisdom. And tell me in the comments, did your grandmother, mother, or church family ever make a heavy old bread that stayed with you all day? Was it barley, sourdough, rye, cornbread, or something else? Because sometimes the food we are looking for is not new at all. Sometimes it is the old loaf, waiting for us to remember why it mattered.